If you're trying to rig a character and getting nowhere, or you simply don't enjoy the process of setting up constraints and drivers, Rigify may be just what you're looking for. Hi and welcome to the new and updated Rigify course by CGDive. This course aims to teach you how to use Rigify properly and unleash the full potential of this auto-rigging system. Here is what you'll learn over the next couple of lessons. We'll start by gaining a solid understanding of Blender armatures. We'll then quickly learn how to rig humans, from simple to complex, using a pre-built meta rig. Then we'll rig a quadruped using another type of pre-built armature. And finally, we'll dive deeper and discover how we can create our own custom meta rigs with Rigify so that you can rig any character, no matter how complex or strange it is. This is the second version of this course. The previous installment was a huge success with thousands of students, but it was recorded with Blender 2.8, whereas the stable version of Blender right now is 4.0. The interface changes have become significant, and that's why I'm making this updated version so that even beginners can learn Rigify easily. Rigify is a free, modular, auto-rigging system for Blender. Free means free of charge. The add-on even comes pre-packaged with Blender. Auto-rigging means that instead of you having to painstakingly set up constraints and drivers, a production-ready rig is generated for you with a click of a button. Modular means that you get access to components such as a spine, a head, a leg, an arm, even a complex tentacle and a whole face rig. And you can assemble these any way you like. This can be a mind-blowing realization for some people. When you activate Rigify, and we'll do that in a second, you will get access to a human rig and some animals. But these are just quick presets. As you'll see very soon, you can build your own rigs by combining the Rigify components, and this way you can rig almost anything with ease. Believe it or not, Rigify download is a popular search on Google, and there are malicious websites that claim to offer a Rigify download. Don't get scammed. Rigify is free and already included in Blender. All you need is the latest version of Blender, which you can get by going to blender.org and clicking on Downloads. I'll assume that you can install the software yourself, because this course is not for complete beginners. At the very least, you should know how to navigate in the 3D viewport, create objects, and move them around. If you don't, please make the donut first and then come back here. Ideally, you should have some basic knowledge of Blender armatures, but if not, the next chapter will be a crash course in Blender armatures, so we'll take care of the basics. And let me quickly mention CGDive Academy. This is CGDive's dedicated course website where you can find my advanced courses and bonus content. And right now you can also get early access to the Rigify Fundamentals in Blender 4.0 course. The Rigify Fundamentals will be a free course on YouTube, and I'll even make it free here on Academy. However, during the initial release, from December 2023 until sometime in January 2024, the course will be in early access and you will have to pay for it as much as $3.99. It is a ridiculous price for the amount of content you're getting. So you can get it as a single course, or you can click here and get a monthly or yearly subscription to CGDive Academy, which will give you access to all content, including the early access to Rigify Fundamentals in Blender 4. As you can see, a lot of the content is already available as early access, so you can start watching right now. The chapters that say coming soon, I'm already recording and editing, so they are coming very soon, within a week or so. Of course, you can wait for the YouTube release. I'll be releasing the videos every couple of days, maybe once per week. My goal is to strike a balance between providing high quality free content for everyone, but also rewarding my biggest supporters. And again, if you're watching this around the end of January 2024, then all of this content here will be free. And I recommend watching it here because you have easy access to downloads. You can ask me questions and you can expect that I'll reply. On YouTube, I get way too many comments and questions, so replying to everyone is no longer possible. If you're a CGDive supporter or you decide to become one, then thank you. I really appreciate it. If you want to go ahead and enable Rigify, just go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, search for Rigify, and place a check mark next to the add-on. Close the preferences, and now Rigify is enabled. We won't practice much in this chapter. I'll just give you a quick overview of where you can find the main Rigify features once you activate the add-on. If you press Shift A and go to Armature, you'll see Human Meta Rig, then Animals, which expands into a couple of different animals, and then Basic, which gives you a basic human and basic quadruped. Before installing Rigify, you will only see single bone here. I'll create a basic human meta rig. Now, if I go to this tab, which is actually Object Data Properties, but most people call it the Armature tab, and so do I. So if I go to the Armature tab, you will see the Rigify panel with the big Generate Rig button. Before I click on it, notice the new bone collections that we have in Blender 4.0. There are many small and gradual interface changes and new features that happened after I recorded the previous course, but this is the huge one. This changes how we work with our rigs quite a lot, and it was one of the main motivations to make this new installment of the course. If I press Generate Rig, you'll see that we get something very complex. If I go to pose mode, I can start moving these controls here. So this is our production ready rig that Rigify generated for us. It may seem complex and even intimidating, but don't worry, by the end of this course, you'll know how these controls work. But generating a rig that is exactly this size is not very useful. Your character may be very small or much bigger, with different proportions, and so on. So if I unhide my meta rig again, select it, and go to edit mode, I can just grab some of these bones and change the proportions of this rig and generate again. And you'll see that my generated rig adapted to these changes. Here I activate the deformation bones. This is just to clearly show the structure of the rig. I can go back to the meta rig, edit mode, tweak it some more, generate, and the changes will be reflected in the generated rig. I can even duplicate this whole arm and do something crazy like parenting it to the leg and generate. And now we have a character with an arm attached to its leg. So these are the things that make Rigify very attractive. Not only can you generate a complex rig quickly, but you can also adapt it to your character with a lot of freedom. Now, there are some limitations, of course. The individual components are predefined and they work in a certain way. If I go to the meta rig and go to the bone tab, at first you won't see anything Rigify related, but if you go to pose mode and select the first leg bone or the first arm bone, you will see a Rigify type. I'll explain exactly how this works in later chapters, but for now keep in mind that this is one area which allows us to tweak how the Rigify rigs work a little bit. I don't want to go any deeper than that in this chapter. We'll uncover these areas of Rigify one by one as we practice. Before we move on to the next chapter, here is important information about some interface changes. For the most part, I use default settings, but I have enabled a special add-on which displays mouse clicks and keyboard shortcuts for you. So you'll be able to see what I'm clicking and pressing. If I go to Edit Preferences again, of course, we'll enable Rigify, and in navigation, I enable Orbit Around Selection, Depth, and Zoom to Mouse Position. These are not mandatory, I just like these settings. Especially if you're new to Blender, do not tweak them. You will learn what they do over time. Then in System, I increase the undo steps to the maximum of 256. If your PC is not too slow, you should do this so that you can undo as many steps as possible. And finally, under Key Map, I enable Tab for Pie Menu and Extra Shading Pie Menu items. These are settings that I cannot live without. They make my workflow much faster. Here is what they do. Tab for Pie Menu enables a pie menu when I press Tab. And that allows me to go to Object Mode, Pose Mode, or Edit Mode for armatures very quickly. I'm mentioning this because sometimes it is really quick and you may not notice it, like this. When I change the mode, It will be reflected over here in the interface, so you can always see which mode I'm in. When I press Z, my pie menu looks like this. So wireframe, solid, material preview, and rendered do exactly the same as these 4 buttons over here. Toggle X-ray is the same as pressing this button here. And toggle overlays is the same as pressing this button. So again, I can switch viewport settings very quickly, but if you get lost, always look at these icons here and you'll know my exact settings. With that, we are ready to move on and learn about Blender armatures.